Stay tuned now for Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome, everybody, to Westchester Eye on the Radio. I'm Peter Moses with Ardina Seward. John Sharan is away with the race car circuit in Phoenix, and we will miss him. Well, I don't know. Will you miss him?
I'll miss him, absolutely. John was sort of a mentor. He helped me get started with you in radio.
I wouldn't call him a mentor. Anyway, we have a guest. Let's get right to the show today. Okay. First of all, how are you?
I am great, except my habanero plants died over the weekend in that cold snap.
You didn't want to bring them in?
No, I went outside to water them, and those poor little guys were just wilted over. So,
did you salvage any of the fruit?
A little bit.
Okay, so you'll grow them again next year.
I hope so. It was just so sad to see them all folded down, given up. But they'll be back. They'll be back.
Well, our guest today actually lives in the part of the country where you don't have to deal with frost and you can grow habaneros year-round. I have a feeling, though, with her British background, I wonder if she is a habanero fan. We have with us today attorney Christine Alden. Hi, Christine. How are you?
Hi, Peter. Hi, Ardina. How are you both? I'm good.
Where's your British accent?
I have been here since I was a child, so since I was 7 years old. And the time when I came to the United States, kids made fun of you when you had an accent, so unfortunately, I lost it. I wish now as an adult I had it.
and yet you're still with, you still go to a lot of social events with British expats because I looked you up.
Yes, I am the president of the British American Business Council down here in Miami, in the Miami chapter, and I very much enjoy doing that in my spare time.
And you have ties to Jamaica also.
I do. My mom is Jamaican, and my father is British, and they met there in the 60s and got married and had me. So half British and half Jamaican.
Okay.
After I saw your pictures, I'm wondering how tall you are, because unless you have a lot of towering people in your life, you don't look like you have great height.
How did you guess that?
I couched it, actually. I said, I'm not sure whether you're just with incredibly tall people or whether you're height deprived.
I'm not the tallest person. I'm like the Chihuahua that thinks I'm really a German Shepherd. How's that?
Okay, so we're not going to find out. Okay, that's fine.
But you have a fierce spirit. First, I'd like to give out the phone number at the top of the show, so if people want to call and they have questions about immigration or deportation, the number is 914-636-0110. That's 914-636-0110. 0110. So let's just get right to the news du jour. We're looking at a lot of people facing deportation from the United States, and if I have my numbers, if my numbers are accurate, we're talking about 50,000 Haitians, 86 Hondurans, 19,000 of whom live in the Bronx. We're talking about Dreamers, Daca. The Salvadorians their stay is up in March, and the Yemenites are also on that list. And there are a lot of people that are out there that are very, very worried today, and just wonder what their futures are. So enlighten us, Chris, on what the status is, and going forward, what the remedy is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as for the numbers, and yes, I agree, there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and I think probably a lot of worried young people here in the United States. There are 10 countries right now that have what we call temporary protected status. The next one that is set for expiration is Haiti, and that is 50,000, and that's on January 22nd. But in total in TPS, there are about 300,000 people from those 10 countries that have TPS that are going to be expiring in the next year. On top of that, you mentioned DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or the Dreamers. There are about 800,000 young people on DACA, and there are also I think, facing very uncertain times right now. I put this whole group in what I call humanitarian immigration, and I feel like right now it's a bit of a crisis because something has to be done. With the TPS and the Daca, what we are telling people is to start looking at Plan B or Plan C, so alternate forms of relief here in the United States. And then also, there's some bills that we can talk about where they've proposed some permanent solutions that we're hoping will transpire into law in the next few months.
But what's going on behind the scenes, if anything? I mean, it's just hard to conceive that within 14 months, the government's going to round up 300,000 people and throw them out of the country. I mean, it's...
First of all, Dina, we're going to go to break. But secondly, this has been going on since Trump came into office. This is not new information. I mean, what's new are the numbers of these particular refugees. But it seems that our government has turned into some very cruel, mean people who just are only going after people who come from countries where they're non-white. You don't see people going after British people living here. You don't see them going after Europeans. It's just people from dark-skinned countries, and it's disgusting and it's sad. And when we come back, we'll speak to Christine Alden more about this. This is Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX and WVOX.com, and we're going to be going to an extended Fox News break. So, Christine, please stay on the line so we can talk to you at length when we come back from this extended break with Fox News and Fox Business.
And now with Fox News commentary, here's Fox News WVOX.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
And welcome back, folks. We are live on the air. This is Westchester Eye on the Radio. I am Ardina Seward, and I am with Peter Moses minus John the Man Sharan, who is doing all the work elsewhere for today, but we'll have him back next week. And we're talking today with Chris Alden, who is an immigration attorney in Miami, but immigration
and other places.
But immigration has no boundaries. So if you have questions, about immigration, you can ask. And speaking of questions, we have Vince on the air. Vince, fire away, buddy.
How you doing, folks?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead. Yeah, we hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, just a quick thing or two. It's always been a wonder to me. After all of the years since we had that Supreme Court case that said that children who are here undocumented have a right to a public education, that the people who get elected to our school boards and the politicians have been completely unwilling to say to the parents of these children, many of whom might be undocumented themselves, you're good enough to be here. We have all kinds of ways to try to protect you and stay here. We hope your children grow up and vote Democratic, but we don't want you to vote in school board elections.
Okay, Vince. I don't mean to interrupt you.
But you make a good point, Vince.
You make a point, but you have a question, or you have just one. This is just your statement, because sometimes you can go on a little long. So what are you trying to say?
Sometimes I can go on a little long.
Go ahead.
No.
Just yes.
No,
who am I speaking with?
Oh, okay, Vince. Something. You've made a very good point.
But we're going to go back.
We're going to go back to Chris. Thanks for calling, but Chris, I want to ask you. We were talking before the break about the possibility of 300,000 people being sent out of the country, out of the United States.
A nation of immigrants, although according to Steve Bannon, we're a nation of citizens.
But now, is that a hard and fast rule? Are politicians working now, unbeknownst to us, to lobby to keep people in the country?
Yeah, well, okay, so Thanks for asking me that. I know that the next decision that's going to have to come out is for Haiti. So what happens is with temporary protected status, they all have set deadlines, but the acting Secretary of Homeland Security, that is Elaine Duke, she has to give 60-day notice prior to the expiration of what will happen, whether they'll extend TPS or if it's going to be designated to be terminated. 60 days for Haiti comes up next week, the day before Thanksgiving. So that will be the next announcement that's made. We don't know which way it is going to go. They've already made the announcement on the Hondurans and the Nicaraguans. I don't know if you're aware of that. That was done about a week ago. On Nicaragua, they decided to extend it for one more year, but have made it clear it will not be extended again after that. So Nicaraguans have been extended to January 2019. And Hondurans, they did not make a decision on there. Elaine Duke, in her press release, said that there wasn't enough information to determine if it was safe or not for Hondurans to return to Honduras. So they gave them an automatic 6-month extension to July. So they are still, it's not a hard and fast rule that everybody's going to be denied extensions at this time. And there are also a couple of bills that are pending for permanent status for people in this situation. And what's interesting is one comes from a Florida congressman and the other one comes from New York. I don't know if you're aware of that. They just came out in about the last 10 days.
Who are these members of Congress?
I'm going to tell you because hopefully people will
write to
support
them.
this.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm actually going to see one of them myself tomorrow. So one is Congressman Curbelo here in Miami. He's a Republican. It's a bipartisan bill. It was introduced with Congresswoman Ross Layton and also Congresswoman Federica Wilson and Congressman Elsie Hastings, and it's called the Esperer bill. That means hope in French, and it would provide green card application eligibility for Haitians, Nicaraguans, El Salvadorians, and Hondurans who held TPS status as of January 13th, 2011. So those are the group of the next four, that were in danger of losing their TPS. So that just was announced on October 30th, and then Representative Nydia Velazquez, she introduced from New York.
She's from Brooklyn. She's from Brooklyn, actually.
Right. I had looked her up. Is she the 7th district of New York? I think it said Lower Manhattan.
And Brooklyn.
Yeah, she's in Manhattan.
Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, so she introduced on November 3rd, 2017, something similar. It's called the American Promise Act of 2017, and that would, for anybody, this is even more broad than what Carlos Curbelo had introduced. It's anybody as of October 1st, 2017 has TPS or something called deferred enforced departure. If they have those statuses or would have otherwise been eligible, they would be eligible to apply for permanent residence. So these two bills have just come out, and they would be permanent solutions. The difference also with Nydia Velazquez is it's not just for the four nationalities that I had mentioned earlier. It would be anybody in TPS. So there are 10 countries right now that would cover. So it would cover quite a lot of people. So that's the first, I think, step that we're seeing to introducing bills to, go forward with some kind of permanent status, because a lot of these people have been here a long time. The Nicaraguans and Hondurans, they've had TPS designation since 1999. It was a result of Hurricane Mitch. The Haitians since 2010, that was triggered by the earthquake. So, these people have roots in the community, and it is, I think, difficult to think about picking up and going. I mean, I personally don't think Haiti is ready to take 50,000 people back. And El Salvador, which is on the chopping block in March, that's 195,000 people.
And the Yemenites are affected, too. There's a war going on in Yemen.
Yeah.
It just isn't, it's not safe.
Yes. Yemen, they have right now till September 3rd, 2018. Somalia is on the list, Sudan, South Sudan, Syria, Nepal. Those are the other countries. Some of the countries have very, small amount of people, just a few hundred, like Sudan, so it doesn't get as much attention. But all 10 of these, at some point in the next year, are going to be decided. And there were a couple others that expired this year. Guinea and Sierra Leone, they were terminated on May 21st, 2017. That was terminated by the prior administration, and Liberia was also terminated, but then they were given some something called the deferred enforced departure, which is good till March.
Let's pick that up on the other side because we are headed into a break. More stuff coming, more news coming. Folks, stay with us. Westchester Eye on the radio. Hang in there.
The national reputation.
1460 WVOX.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back, everybody, to Westchester Eye on the Radio. Ardina and I today have as our guest Christine Alden, an immigration attorney from the great state of Florida.
Miami.
And other, well, they have, I think you have 3 offices, right?
We have, right now, just our office in Miami.
Oh, so that's so different.
What offices did you have? We had one in Palm Beach County until about a year ago.
Oh.
But we've consolidated to Miami.
Oh, because your office website lists 3 different offices.
Well, Miami's pretty busy, so I think
Miami
busy. Is probably enough, Chris, right?
It should not list 3 different cities, so now I'm going
to
have to
Miami.
check that.
It says Miami-Dade, Palm Beach County, and Broward.
Oh, Broward, yeah, that's Fort Lauderdale. We cover that area, but we don't have an office there.
Different phone numbers for each of them, by the
yes.
way. Anyway, regardless of that, how much of an uphill battle is this? Because it sounds like you have to go in multi directions all the time right now, since there's so many different countries that are being impacted by this. And how big an attorney push is this? How many attorneys do you think in Southern Florida or across the nation are working on these issues?
And so that's a great question. So for South Florida's chapter of American Immigration Lawyers Association, I'm the vice president of that. There's about 1,000 lawyers. But not everybody's working on pushing forward. I think on our side, unfortunately, we tend to be the quieter side of the issue. I think because there's so many lawyers running their practices, and we're just dealing with all the anxiety and that the clients have. In the beginning of when we had this new administration, initially it was the first month, I think the panic was coming from our clients who are in these humanitarian types of situations like the TPS and the Dreamers. And then the second month I started seeing our business clients were getting concerned. I think that this affects all immigrants because it's a very enforcement-heavy time right now, and it's affecting all walks of life. I do quite a bit of congressional lobbying, and I've been told that when we go in, they love hearing from us because they say for every one of us they hear from that's pro-immigration, they hear maybe 10 opposite opinions. So I think, on our side, and that's why I'm so happy you were able to have me on the show and to be able to talk about this, and you're willing to listen and let us present our side, because I think that when you look at the television and when you look at everything, there's a lot more people speaking out on the other side. We're here, but we're just not as vocal.
I also want to interrupt you. I just want to interrupt you for 1 second. We're mostly heard locally, and there are people from all these different countries living in our backyards. This is not a South Florida problem. This is not. This is a problem that's nationwide, but it's very acute up here. I mean, we have many Caribbeans and people from Yemen and other countries who are living within 20 miles of where we are right now in New Rochelle.
That's why it's so unfathomable, because when you're talking about throwing out immigrants, you're also talking about not only the local economies, but the backbone of the New York City economy. I mean, a good percentage, for example, of the delis in New York City are Yemeni owned and run and operated. So you start throwing out the Yemenis, where are you going to get your bologna sandwiches from? I mean, you can buy them, but it's not going to be the same. There's a lot to consider, because every immigrant group that comes into New York City, even though people say, well, they don't pay taxes, frankly, they do pay taxes. They do contribute to the economy. They get a bad rap, and hopefully the situation is not as dire as it appears to be right now.
Sounds pretty dire, Ardina. And while Christine is giving us, there's some positive traction going forward. Do you agree that this is dire, or you think this is?
Yes, I do. I think that at this point it's crisis mode. 6 months ago when we were doing congressional lobbying for American immigration lawyers, we were not so concerned about Dreamers and Daca, and those are the children who came here at no choice of their own when they were young, and you would think that would be the class of people that they would most likely would like to help. And recently, that program on September 4th, or it was the 5th, the president announced that they would be ending that program and gave a 1-month deadline for individuals whose DACA was going to expire in March to apply one last time. One of the big pushes that we have right now, and the reason we're going to see our congressional representatives, is because before this session ends, we would like them to pass the DREAM Act. And there is a bill that was proposed by Lindsey Graham. Senate bill, I think it's 1615, and there's a companion bill in the House as well that's there. And we would like them to pass that so these 800,000 kids that are on DACA are not living on the edge of their seats. They're very worried right now. And,
with good reason.
Yes, and Ardina, just, you mentioned the thing about the taxes, and that really gets under my skin when people say, oh, there's all these people living here not paying taxes, and that is totally untrue. Someone who's out of status and paying their taxes, those are two totally different things. A lot of people who are undocumented or out of status, they are paying their taxes, and statistics have, on record last year, it was $11.74 billion in taxes that were collected from undocumented immigrants. And if some of these laws were to change where more people would be able to be documented, more people would pay their taxes.
Exactly.
So then they would get even more money. So, sometimes we see people who are undocumented and they say, we want to pay our taxes. How do we do it? So I think that's just a bad branding that's put out there.
Well, it's basically opposition PR. It's opposition PR. So it's always easy to demonize a group or people with a lack of facts. Now, in terms of political action, what can people do now? Is it more demonstrations, phone calls to Congress people, phone calls to politicians? What can people do to feel as though they are helping the process?
Mm-hmm. I think that phone calls to politicians help. I think making an appointment with your congressional representative. I don't think very many people know that, if you would like to, you call your congressional representative and you can make an appointment to go in and basically talk about whatever concerns you have. They're there, and that's what they have staffers, and each office has somebody who works with immigration issues, and you can make an appointment to go see them locally in district, or you can make an appointment to go see them in Washington, D.C. at their office there. Sometimes you'll get to actually meet with the actual congressperson or the senator if you're lucky. So, and they'll spend time with you. I mean, that's what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm doing congressional lobbying for the next couple of days. You can reach out on social media. And there's, I think it makes a difference. I really think it makes a difference. Those are the kind of things that have to be done.
It makes a huge difference. I mean, the Women's March back when 45 was elected sent a message to the White House that women are not going to be, that women will not remain silent. And the same methodology can be applied to the immigration issue, where when people get together in droves, it does make a huge difference. And moving forward again on the immigration issue, let's talk about a new law. Well, it isn't a law yet, but it's about to be a law that a lot of people don't know about, which the European countries are proposing to basically say that Americans traveling to European countries will have to have a visa as of 2018. And they will have to submit paperwork. And if you have a criminal background or even a minor arrest, you can be denied entry into certain European countries. So, Chris, I'll let you take it from there. It's called the ETAIS law.
Yes, and you're totally right. This is not on the radar at all here. And I practice immigration law in the United States, not Europe. So I did take a look at this. It does stand for the EU Travel Information and Authorization System, and from what I can see, it's proposed. It is the same thing, though, that we do here in the United States to Europeans, but what we
I'm going to have to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but we're going to break in a few seconds. When we come back, we want to pick up on this issue right away. So we're going to have to come back to Christine Alden. This is Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX and WVOX.com. So please stay tuned after these words for the final quarter hour of Westchester Eye. And we're looking forward to hearing more from Christine Alden on this very important issue.
WVOX.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
And we are back. This is Westchester Eye on the Radio. Thanks for staying with us, folks. I am Ardina with Peter Moses. John Sharan is off today. And our guest is Chris Alden, who is an immigration attorney out of Miami. But immigration, as you know, has no boundaries, no pun intended, in the U.S. And we're talking about impending doom to an extent. And hopefully it won't be as bad as it looks, but we just have to keep fighting, folks. We were talking before the break about a new law which may come to fruition in Europe, where the Europeans, it's tit for tat. The Europeans are saying, okay, if you won't let us in, we're not going to let you guys in. And as of 2018, American travelers may have to have a visa to enter all subscribing European countries. So let's elaborate on that a little more, Chris, and what it involves and what it means.
Yeah, so before the break, I was about to say that we have something similar here in the United States. It's called ESTA, the Electronic System for Travel Authorization, and that came out of something called the Visa Waiver program that's been around since 1986. But basically what we do, there are about 38 countries, European countries mostly, that don't need a visa to visit the U.S. So what they do is they go on and they're kind of pre-screened. They do an application online. They pay $14, and they answer some simple questions about if they've ever overstayed or been refused entry to the U.S. or have any criminal issues. And if they are, that triggers a denial, and then they have to go to a U.S. embassy and apply for a full visa to come to the U.S. It's a visitor visa. It looks like that's something that Europe is now exploring doing, and what is actually interesting is because the United Kingdom would be doing Brexit, they could even be subject to that if they wanted to go to Europe, but that hasn't been decided yet. And none of it's really decided, but it would require Americans, before taking a vacation to Europe, they would have to go online, pay €5, which is, about $6, and answer similar questions. It wasn't clear to me what would happen if you were actually arrested and you had to disclose it. It said that, you would be denied and you would have the chance to appeal. It didn't mention anything about then going in and applying for a full visa and having an interview. So I think that still needs to be ironed out. But I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. And I think it's also triggered in Europe because they've had terrorist attacks in France and Belgium, and they want to know who's coming into Europe. So I think it stems from a security issue also. And but yes, Americans should be aware of that, because if you're going to be taking vacations to Europe, they may not be able to go. So they would have to make sure they're pre-screened before, and it looks like it's a pretty straightforward process. It can be done from their computer in a few minutes, and then you would get an answer pretty quickly.
I did read, I don't know if I misinterpreted what was written, but apparently it did say that if you have a criminal history, that you could be subject to non-entry into the country. This is, a couple of weeks ago we had Alvin Queen, jazz musician Alvin Queen, on the air, who was denied entry to the United States because he had because he had an arrest record dating back 50 years. That's 50 years ago, that he thought had, although his charges were dropped apparently, he thought that would not be a factor in coming in. Now, what that means is that the Europeans are doing the same thing. So it seems to imply that anybody who has an arrest record, similar to the Alvin Queen situation, could be denied entry into the European country. So if that law passes and anybody wants to go to Europe, prior to going to Europe, they really need to check the status of their arrest records to find out if they have been expunged or if that could impact their ability to travel. So
this tit for tat that's going on with our country and all these other countries with which, for the most part, we've had good, positive relations with, is a direct outcome of the election of 2016. And this degree of pettiness, while I mean, people will still, if they don't have an arrest record, will still be able to go to Europe. But for those who are in this country, like the Daca people and the people from these 10 countries, this is a life and death situation for them.
Exactly.
It's an inconvenience for you and me.
But it's serious
and for Christine,
business.
But it's serious business to these people who are here and want to stay. The amount of hatred that's emanating from Washington, from the Republicans, is just unprecedented in my lifetime.
Well, this is why it's really important for people to get behind the politicians and to really be vocal.
Get behind the politicians?
Well, to get behind them, get in front of them, whatever. But to make them
get rid of them.
To really push the issue about fairness. I mean, if you come into this country as a 6-month-old child and you are now 20, 23 years old, you've graduated from college, you have a clean record, why should you be thrown out? Why should you be sent back to a country that you don't know the language, you don't have any ties? Basically, if you're here that long, you are an American. Maybe you're not an American documented, but you're still an American. So it's a frightening prospect. It's frightening to contemplate that your future could be changed at the stroke of a pen. So,
Chris, anything you want to say about this?
Yeah, no, this is the reality of what we're seeing, and we have clients at our firm. They've been here since they were babies, and they don't even speak the language of where they're from. They sound totally American, and they've since gotten married. They have children. They've been to college, they have professional jobs, and I don't think they ever thought that it would be reality that they may not be able to stay. Hopefully the DREAM Act will pass, and hopefully Congress isn't going to wait till the last minute, and they'll do something this session before they go to winter break. But yeah, it's a really terrifying time right now. I think for the 800,000 on Daca and the 300,000 on TPS, it's just very uncertain, and especially the people on TPS, you get like these 6-month extensions, and then you're going to go through the trauma again in 6 months and the worry, and so it is difficult, and especially the people who have really long-term roots here in the U.S. And the Daca kids, a lot of them are amazing kids, very smart kids that went to university, and they're very bright. They're very. I do have to hand it to them. I love that they do protest and they speak their minds, and they're not afraid to speak up. And I think that also has really helped their cause.
I think the question is, though, we're listening, but are the people who can make a difference in this actually listening?
Well, you have to make them listen. I mean, you have to get out there and you have to lobby. You have to picket. You have to scream, holler, just to keep the issue out there. Yeah, you can write emails, send letters. Go, like we talked about. Go see your congressperson. Call them. You've just got to be heard right now. And now is not the time to not do anything, because really it is at what we call the crisis time, where there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. Even in the next week, there's the decision on Haiti. So, in the meanwhile, the people who are in this situation, the undocumented or the immigrants that are in this situation, what they also should be doing, I think, is looking at Plan B and C. Is there any other
form of relief that they could get here in the U.S. immigration-wise, because if these bills don't go through, if Congress doesn't agree, then you've got to have some other kind of options that you've got to be looking at.
And what's the best source of information now, Chris, for somebody listening and wondering where do I go, what do I do?
Mm-hmm. I would say go speak to somebody who's an attorney who has a lot of experience. And, I'm wondering, a lot of times when we meet with people, things have been overlooked in their history, and every now and again we have a great day when we discover someone's really a U.S. citizen and they never knew because they've never looked at their family history. Or maybe something was filed for their parents when they were younger that would grandfather them into an old law called 245I, where you can pay a fine.
All right, well, I need to interrupt you. Thank you for being on our air, Christine, very, very much. Ardina, I know we have next week is in flux a little bit.
Next week we are waiting for a call back from a Native American organization because Thanksgiving is coming up on November 22nd, and we need to hear a different perspective, a Native American perspective. So hopefully we will have that group on the show. Chris, thank you so much for being a great guest.
And listeners, we look forward to connecting with you next week. This is Westchester Eye on the radio signing off. You guys have a great week, and I hope the weather holds up and we don't get much colder in the next few days. Bye now.